You will talk about crisis engineering, digital resilience, and free software. This is a double session. As you know, it will take the timing of 2 rounds, so 35 minutes, including the Q&A part. And Valerie, the stage is yours. The clicker is coming in a moment. It's in there. Thank you.
Testing. How's the sound? Yeah? Looks good? Oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Get some water, too. Thank you all for coming out here. This is a subject that's very, very near and dear to my heart. So I hope you are all interested. I'll be talking about crisis engineering, digital resilience, and free software, how I'm helping digital resilience in Europe, and how you can, too. A little bit about me. I'm Valerie Aurora. I'm co-founder of Baushock Systems. I'm a systems software consultant with over 25 years of experience in free and open source software, file systems, networking, things like that. I'm currently a developer on RapidFS, a very, very new FOSS distributed network file system. It's very hard to search, but that will get better soon. Kernel.org has the repository now. So I'm also a special rapporteur for the Cyber Resilience Act standards for operating systems and network interfaces. And this is relevant. I moved from San Francisco to Amsterdam in 2023. All right, so I'm going to talk about why Europe needs independence and resiliency more than ever. I think you're probably already convinced, but it doesn't hurt. I'll talk about what crisis engineering is and what it tells us about how this transition will happen. I'll talk about 3 ways I'm improving European independence and resiliency with FOSS. These start from like the local, easy, all the way up to the high, the entire EU-wide versions. Moving my online life to European-owned and controlled services, starting an internet resiliency club, developing Cyber Resilience Act standards, and then I'm going to talk about how you can do improve resiliency as well. All right, so disruption is the new normal for Europe. I'm sorry for those of you who don't like thinking about this, but Danish intelligence says we're in a hybrid war with Russia right now. The US has threatened to take over or occupy parts of Greenland and Ukraine. As far as I know, those are the only European countries he's threatened to invade, but the list keeps getting longer. The US used sanctions to cut off access to Microsoft email for members of the ICC. Hilariously, they deny this. It's definitely true, and the ICC just migrated off Microsoft 365. There was a over 10-hour-long Iberian Peninsula blackout caused by, I've read all the reports. Regulation basically fell behind changes in power generation caused by climate change. So there's a lot of different ways this is happening. So the question I had was, what if we lose internet and power for a significant period of time? How do you get that back? So here's a picture of what you do in Ukraine when somebody blows up your internet lines. There's a lot of repairing the fiber going on. So I went and checked, what is Europe doing to prepare? So ENISA actually published a lot of very good recommendations for improving security and resiliency of communications infrastructure. Unfortunately, nobody's doing it. When governments do have plans to improve security and resiliency, they're like, it's several years out before they'll be done. We need it a little sooner. Ukraine is, unsurprisingly, leading the way on both implementation and knowledge sharing. So you can look at this great video from the Ukrainian IXP X1 with very concrete, specific advice on how to improve the resiliency of internet infrastructure. I also noticed that Finland, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania are all doing better than average in preparing. And I was wondering if there was a pattern. No, this has got to be a coincidence. All right, so I live in the Netherlands. What are we doing to prepare? I went and did a bunch of research. The Dutch government does have a plan for improving cybersecurity by 2028. I think that might be a little late. Definitely, Dutch national and local governments and corporations, including tech companies, are still migrating actively to US-based clouds and US-owned. Even when a service is owned by a Dutch company, the tech workers there may not live in the Netherlands, which makes it hard to fix things when they don't have internet. So this happened to Australia. There was the famous Optus outage where everybody who knew how to fix it lived off the continent of Australia. So even the Dutch National Emergency Communication System is implemented in the cloud. Technically a Dutch-owned cloud, but you tell me if that's going to keep working in an emergency. It won't. All right, so this is how I felt after all of this. My big concern is I really want to be able to have connections when things are going bad. So I asked, what can we do if government and businesses aren't preparing for the crisis? Surely we can just warn them and force them to take action and just be like, hey, everybody, this is going to happen. Can we do that? And the answer is that never works. And I'll explain why. But when the crisis arrives, suddenly everything is different. Here's why. All right, crisis engineering. So this is a new field. Nobody likes the word crisis. Crisis sounds bad. They prefer words like challenge. But crisis engineering is the study of structural transformation of organizations during crises that threaten their core functions. We'll go into a lot more detail on this. But I want you to know that this is fully practical. It's developed by a bunch of site reliability engineers who, most of them used to work for Google until they discovered there were better things to do with their time. They fixed a whole lot of broken US government systems, starting with the US healthcare exchange, which failed dramatically when it was launched. It's based entirely on their real world experience. It's not theoretical in any way. They just wrote down what they did over and over and over again, hundreds of times. The group of people who developed this do this full time as a consultancy at Layer Aleph. A book is coming out soon. I got to read an early copy. It was really good. And you can find out more at their website. All right. So organizations don't like change, and this is for good reason. If it ain't broke, don't fix it works great when things are stable. People and organizations love to operate on autopilot because it's easier and more efficient. I recently had to move continents and relearning how to pay for groceries. Yeah, it's a pain. I'd rather just keep doing it the same way. Dutch grocery stores are famous for being extremely random about which cards they take. So organizations usually avoid risky or expensive changes. If you're a network engineer, you know how hard it is to get your any changes done in your routing table or anything like that. So that includes, unfortunately, change necessary to prepare for a crisis. If you've ever tried to make these changes, you'll discover that you get a lot of negative feedback and possibly fired. So major change is generally almost impossible, except during a crisis. Crises are opportunities. So what is a crisis? You have to be sure that you're actually having one, otherwise you can't do all these things. So 5 elements of a crisis as defined by Layer Aleph. Fundamental surprise, perception breakdown, degradation or change of process or outcomes, high visibility, and rigid timing constraints. So I'll go into detail on each of these. A fundamental surprise is an event that violates the consensus reality of the organization about something like how the world works, what's happening right now, what the relationship of the organization is with the world, and what their purpose is. So an example would be we route internet traffic. Now we have no power to any of our data centers, and the generators are running out of fuel, at which point we will no longer be routing internet traffic. There's a great talk about the Iberian blackout by, Amadeo, I can't remember his last name exactly, but it was at RIPE 90, very good. They had a contract for fuel delivery, but when the power was out to all of the gas station pumps and all of the streetlights, the truck couldn't get to them. So this is why people like diesel. Diesel lasts longer. All right, so perception breakdown. This is another new term. Crisis engineering is one term. Sense making is another. It's the automatic, continuous process of making decisions that governs most actions by most people and organizations most of the time. You might have heard Daniel Kahneman calling it thinking fast versus thinking slow. In a crisis, sense-making stops working because the usual ways of gathering information and making decisions no longer work. Things have changed, and it's either invisible or your signals don't make sense. During a crisis, the organization has to learn new ways of sense-making, observing, deciding, and acting. A degradation or change of process of outcomes. This is when the organization cannot fulfill its core mission, or if it's changes to something very different, right? So I'm seeing this firsthand working on the CRA standards, the Cyber Resilience Act standards, with organizations that are designed to do one thing and being asked to do a completely different thing. So talk about that more. All right, high visibility. This is two sides. If an organization is having some kind of major disruption, isn't doing its job anymore, it will often just not tell anybody. Hey, everything's fine here, until there's visibility. And visibility can come from inside the organization, like this is the only thing people are talking about on Slack, or there can be something outside, like news stories or the government getting on their case. High visibility means that there are potential consequences for not fixing the problem. There's no reason people fix problems just because. They usually have to have an incentive. High visibility has the negative that it can often make people behave more conservatively and fearfully, which is exactly the opposite of what you need in a crisis. All right, final element of a crisis, rigid timing constraints. Without a deadline, a failing organization can just keep failing forever. No problem. So deadlines are created by things like physics, legal action, legislation, markets, weather, people's health, things like that. So this is one of the reasons fighting climate change is so hard. There's no agreed upon deadline. Scientists keep trying to define tipping points. The problem with a tipping point is you're only sure it was a tipping point once it's too late. So hard deadlines, you should view them as a positive. All right, so crisis is an opportunity to make change. Instead of a thing you're trying to avoid because you can't, because organizations won't change, you look at it and say, we're going to have this crisis, and this is when I can change this organization. So this can often result in unrelated changes that needed to happen, being able to get through, but mostly ones that are related to the crisis. So if you, personally, know the crisis is coming, can perceive it, you have the ability to see the information. You don't constantly say bad news is just people being rude or disrespectful. That's one way to view things. If you have a plan for what to do, you can often transform the organization when the crisis arrives. So this is an incredibly short summary of an entire book. You should read the book when it comes out. But crisis engineering is essentially setting up an instant command center, finding some key metrics to pay attention, getting the most accurate information possible. Don't ask a manager, ask the person doing it. Building a map, which is sort of a picture of the system. And then, this is important, you take action and see what effect it has on the system. This is the only way you can find out if your perceptions are correct. Okay, crisis engineering. What does this mean for European independence and resilience? So we don't have a crisis in Europe yet, most of Europe. Obviously, Ukraine is fully transforming. Fundamental surprise, yes, this is happening. The United States is falling apart / invading everybody. The perception breakdown, that is happening. The old ways of doing business and figuring out what's happening no longer work. A degradation or change of process or outcomes. This is happening a little bit, but mostly people can keep doing what they're doing. High visibility, that's somewhat. Mostly people are still trying to pretend. Rigid deadline, definitely not yet. I think that will change very shortly. Okay, so what can we all do before the crisis? We can make a plan. We can gather like-minded people. We can get to know all the people we will need to work with. We can build tools, practice, run drills, and we can prioritize what needs to be done before the crisis starts, right? There's a number of things like downloading the firmware images for your routers that you can't do when the internet is gone. And then when the crisis arrives, present your plan, and people will be like, wow, you're very smart, instead of firing you, right? So here's my personal plan to improve internet resiliency. I'll go into a little detail here, and then at the end I'll share with how you can do the same. All right, moving to European, that slide will show up a lot if you missed it. Moving to European online services. This is not great news, and this is because the crisis is not here yet. So my goals were to move my entire online life to European-owned and hosted services, both physically located here and owned and controlled by European entities. I can't tell where their employees work, but this is a better option than US-owned for sure. So there's a great website, europeanalternatives.eu. I gave myself 2 weeks when it was okay for me to lose email. So I started with this set of things. I had already moved off mainstream social media onto a US Mastodon server. Now I'm on a Dutch one, a whole bunch of Dutch infrastructure, and a few other things from Germany and hosted in Switzerland. Oh, one of the things you might think about, it's not obvious, your domains. Who runs the top level domain? So .nl is, yeah. .org is .com, that's not good. So I have one email address that will definitely work. So in theory, when it comes to free software, there are lots of FOSS online document editing suites. You go to a conference, people tell you about all these amazing things. In practice, I could not buy these things or use them. If I needed 100 licenses, I'd be good. And every time I tried something, it just didn't work for me. So Nextcloud, just every one I tried was way too slow. I didn't want to self-host because I do not want to do my own security. Calendar sync was once a week. That won't work for me at all. Simply paying money for the service can take days. I'm used to just like typing in my credit card and being done. Calendaring is a nightmare. If you're not inside Microsoft or Google, nothing works. And so everything is slower, buggier, harder to use. The one I ended up using is the Infomaniac K-Drive, KDoc solution. That was fast and snappy, but I don't believe it's open source. Correct me if I'm wrong. All right, so when I went to OW2Con 2024, I heard a lot of, if everyone just switched to a FOSS document suite, donated 20 euros a month to their favorite FOSS project, used a FOSS phone. And there's a reason everybody isn't just changing their behavior. Migration is difficult, costly, and often you get something that's not as good. I only did it because I am sure I will have to, and I didn't want to do it in a hurry. And I have 25 years of experience as an operating systems developer, and it was so hard. But here's what you can do. At some point, the cost of not migrating to European hosted controlled infrastructure or free and open source software, the cost of that will be obviously greater than the cost of migrating. So you can prepare for that. Pick out your services you want to move to, do a test migration and write documentation, write a migration plan, set up any scripts or tools, and identify anything that must be done before the crisis happens. And maybe you'll get lucky. Maybe your organization will transition before it's really painful. But all right. So here's my next step, start an internet resiliency club. All right. So I want to be connected during an emergency, especially. And there were a bunch of reasons why that was not clear that that was going to happen. For example, the KPN cloud emergency communication. So I asked, what if I could set up an ad hoc emergency communications network between networking experts that could bootstrap internet recovery efforts, right? I just kept imagining in Amsterdam, internet goes down, power goes down. Are we all going to like bicycle to the train station? To Central? Probably, that's where the RIPE NCC offices are. But I thought perhaps we could have something better than bicycling to the train station. Everyone would have to be a volunteer because there's no money, so whatever I did was have to be easy, cheap, and fun. And we must be able to communicate for days without any centralized infrastructure, including power. The city of Amsterdam is currently making plans for 3 weeks without power. Which is very cool. It just won't be ready until 2028. So the goal is to provide a text message capability for a few days to organize fixing the internet, not provide voice calls or transmit TCP IP packets. Whenever I give this talk to networking people, they're like, oh, but your solution won't work for sending video. I know. That's not the goal. I used to have an entire slide on why ham radio won't work. It is too difficult, it's too expensive, it's power hungry, and it's overkill for this. We don't need voice communications across hundreds of kilometers. We're just trying to get things back up in an urban area. But people who are ham radio experts are great to have in this group. All right, so there's a thing called long-range radio, short LoRa for short. They use chirped spread spectrum to send small, short messages to other LoRa radios in line of sight. So you don't need a license, or they're super, super cheap. They start at 20 euros. They use a very small amount of power, and they use Bluetooth or Wi-Fi to connect to a phone or a computer, so you don't have to pay for a whole separate keyboard or a big screen. This is a tiny little e-ink display. They can run for days from an ordinary mobile phone power bank if you have trickle charge. They pull so little power, that you have to have that feature that lets you charge things that pull very little power. Or a small solar panel, this big. Very small. It uses so little power that you don't have to worry about wiring or batteries or anything like that. You don't have to worry about the temperature when you charge or discharge. It's just so easy. I know someone who uses a capacitor to power theirs. It's great. So what software do you use? There's this great hobbyist project called Meshtastic. It's all open source, and you install it, and it sets up a mesh network. It uses a super simple flood forward protocol with a limited number of hops. You can set the number. It's maybe too simple. There's a lot of complaints about the routing. That's one of the issues. It allows multiple encrypted channels to separate traffic. And there's already 2,500 nodes in Europe on meshmap.net, but there's a lot more than that. One of the funny things about ham radio is that it's illegal to transmit encrypted packets, so you can't use TLS to get to websites, legally speaking. There are other open source LoRa messaging options, such as MeshCore, that we're also experimenting with, but Meshtastic is the most popular and has the most coverage of devices and most number of devices. So here's the mesh map for Amsterdam. This is not enough nodes, I'm just telling you. But this is what it looks like on my, so these are only ones that are registered on the internet and agreed to be shown on the map. This is what I can see as on a normal day of the actual nodes that are transmitting. So I started an internet resiliency club. You can too. The steps are, I invited fun, nice, internet knowledgeable people to hang out every couple of months. We established normal comms with multiple backups. Hey, turns out signal's dependent on the AWS East 1. So we have a local matrix, and we have a mailing list hosted in Amsterdam. I bulk bought LoRa radios, batteries, and solar panels, and just handed them out to people, and most people paid me back. It was great. It's the Netherlands, right? We picked a LoRa channel to chat on, to send little jokes and things like that. Eventually, that will be what we would use. And then we gave talks at conferences full of people who can fix the internet. It's a great way to recruit. Talk to me if you'd like to get interested. We actually ended up, this is a thing I didn't understand about Europe at all. I was like, the government's not going to help us. No way. Turns out, if you start it, government won't start a thing. But if you start a thing, the government is very happy to help. So we have a meeting with the city of Amsterdam in a couple of weeks, and the Ministry of Defense. Woo, yes. But WAG Future Lab has been working on this quite some time. They're thrilled to partner with us. They got some grants. They've applied for more. So basically, in short, Meshtastic is an open source project, and it needs more funding for maintenance, which is a thing I will talk to you more about. All right, so if you want to do this, I suggest picking one of these two platforms, the Heltec V3, 20 euros, Lilio T-Echo, 80 euros. This is my T-Echo right here. And the most important thing is just click buy. It doesn't matter. You know what? You're going to buy 3 more. So just pick one, buy it, and you won't regret it. Just the 2 hardware tips. I'm a software person. I'm not used to things breaking permanently. But first, LoRa devices, most of them don't really implement USB-C power delivery. So you have to have a USB-A to C charger, or it won't charge. And this is the most important part with any radio. Never power it on without the antenna connected, or the power might reflect back onto the device, onto the chip, and fry it, and then it's dead. But it was 20 euros, who cares? So here's that's my folding solar panel, that's my power bank that will keep things going for a week without any sun. So the 2 of these together, I think, will keep everything going. That's the Heltec V3 up top, and that's the Lilio T-Echo down there. So you can start a club. I spent about 9 months on this so far, almost a year. It's an average of about an hour a week. I have a large personal network. That's very necessary for this to happen. And crucially, you must use Doodle to figure out when you can meet. So you can ask your employer to give LoRa radios and power banks to interested staff, especially if you work at an internet-related organization. And here's a bunch of detailed instructions and non-Amazon European links to purchase the hardware. That's another issue. Where do you get those? Okay, finally, developing Cyber Resilience Act standards. So, the Cyber Resilience Act is very well covered at this conference. I won't go into huge detail. Essentially, it applies product safety standards to anything that can connect to a network, even through a file or a Unix pipe. Wow, okay. The initial version was very bad for free and open source software. The final version is very good for free and open source software, and thank you to everyone here who helped make that change. Essentially, I'm not a lawyer, talk to your lawyer. Non-commercial FOSS has absolutely no obligation or liability under the CRA. Even commercial products, if they're 100% FOSS, no hardware, they can always self-assess no matter what. And this is just one of the many, these are some of the CRA incentives to open source your product. It's really good for open source. Here's the message I want for all of you. CRA creates a funding stream for FOSS. Organizations trying to make a profit with their product must do due diligence on the FOSS parts of the product. They must also track and fix any vulnerabilities in the FOSS components and contribute them upstream. So cool. There's a thing called open source stewards that lets people do most of the work for the CRA assessment without any liability. There's a bunch of rules about this we're trying to figure out, but basically don't make money. And open source stewards then can charge licensing fees for using their work, which you could use to fund open source maintenance, which nobody wants to do. Nobody wants to pay for maintenance. All right, so I'm hearing a lot of complaints, but charging money, we don't do that in free software. It's free as in libre, not free as in low cost. So I have a question here. Raise your hand if you like doing standards assessment preparation in your spare time for free. Yeah, anyone? Thank you for proving that there is a very small, that not everyone is just afraid to raise their hand. Okay, so almost no one will do this for free. You'll have to pay them. And the thing is, only organizations who are making a profit or trying to make a profit will benefit, right? Everyone who's just using it for their own enjoyment or their nonprofit project, they're fine. The FOSS maintenance crisis is real, so don't mess this up, okay? Charge the money. Okay, so I'm a special rapporteur. Vertical standards are simplified standards for CRA compliance focused on a particular type of product. It allows vendors to self-assess when they otherwise couldn't, and gives you this nice thing called presumption of conformity. This is good for legal stuff. The EC is funding FOSS experts like me to lead the development of many of the vertical standards, and my organization, Baushock, is leading operating systems, network interfaces, VPNs, network management systems, and security information and event management. So this is my first experience in the standards world. There's 3 European standards organizations, CEN, CENELEC, and ETSI. They are having a problem with change of purpose or goal and process. They're used to writing standards that are bottom-up. Manufacturers want them for interoperability. They're focused on hardware and telecom. They have very little software expertise. They're used to taking 5 years to develop a standard. So definitely got they have all the elements of a crisis going on. There's hard deadlines. It's a thing. So this work is my love letter to the EU. It is it is a lot of work. Work on the verticals didn't start till June. They're due in 6 months. Most of the vertical rapporteurs are writing the majority of their standards. That is wrong and bad, and it should not be that way, but manufacturers are not. The system doesn't work the way that it does for things that manufacturers want. So I personally hate standards work. I have no plans to ever do it again. But if the CRA works, we will have more security, software freedom, freedom of use for consumers, which is obviously good for European independence and digital resilience. And this is why I have worked every weekend since June. If I look tired and grumpy, that's why. All right, you can help too. Here's a few ways you can do it. Frankly, my Fediverse account has been the best method for getting feedback on the CRA standards. You can comment on the public version at a GitLab instance. You can ask your employer to become an Etsy member, which is surprisingly cheap, and then you can be an Etsy delegate through that. Or you can be an Etsy delegate for free if you represent a free and open source project. Ask me how. You can also get paid 450 euros a day to contribute through the CyberStand project funding situation. All right, so please do that. I'm tired of writing standards. Okay, so here's what you can do. Summary of all of the things. Prepare for when the crisis arrives. Move to a European and free software services, start your own internet resiliency club, help develop CRA standards, and follow me on the Fediverse. So, all right, that's all I've got. We have time for some questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Valerie. So we got a few minutes for questions.
All right.
There's one in there.
Yeah.
Just in the last row. Yeah. Please.
Looks like I got a message.
My question is actually related to that. Last year, after the Spanish blackout, I was inspired by similar reasoning that you did, and I looked into what I could buy to not be cut off of the internet. Yeah. And I bumped into Mesh Static, and I was just about to buy that. But I made a mistake to read the Reddit group where people were suggesting that, yes, Mesh Static kind of work, but it might stop working when you need it the most, which might be during a crisis because of the increase of traffic. And I ended up buying a cheap ham radio on AliExpress instead. What do you think?
Yeah, so that is why we have to do some work on this, right? I showed you the map of Amsterdam. We don't have enough nodes, and we don't know how many of them are battery powered. So those grants involve both buying and handing out more Meshtastic nodes that are battery or solar powered, and getting the community organizations all in contact and knowing where to go find something they can communicate. So really, remember, it's mostly a stopgap short term, and it's only for text messages, but it takes work. Bolzano does not have a lot of nodes at this point, for example. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah. Other questions?
Thank you. I see the Meshtastic are short messages, so it looks a little bit like pager messages.
Exactly. Think of it as like that. Yeah.
Is this a real benefit for disaster recovery and disaster reaction over just using walkie-talkies?
Yeah. So walkie-talkies are we actually did a test with walkie-talkies versus Meshtastic, and the Meshtastic got through much farther than the walkie-talkies. Walkie-talkies are also, voice. It's hard to store, all that kind of stuff. So my take is you should have all of them. So I want to have a Meshtastic network, and then members of that who have ham radios, and then members of that who have walkie-talkies for things where they need to do that, right? So it's all of the things. We just can't have something that's all cloud.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Other questions? All right, we have a few seconds for one last one. Yeah. I'd like to ask you about the Internet Resiliency Club you're holding. How do you keep people involved into the club?
Yes, there has to be fun things. We have a bunch of ideas, but right now it's just debugging. Everyone, it's the only way you can get help to fix what's wrong with your Meshtastic configuration and figure out what mistake you're making. We have a bunch of super competent people, and they're like, oh, I shouldn't set it to router mode, right? Like that's what it takes. So mostly it's the socializing and getting together once a month to hang out with each other. So that's why you should only have fun, nice people. So.